Edison State Community College invites you to a video preview of its 9-day tour of China. Community members are invited to travel with faculty, staff, and students on a trip of discovery in March of 2011. So come along as we uncover the footprints of China in the Miami Valley. Over the past decade, Chinese films have invaded the U.S. with blockbusters like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Hero. And with the economic powerhouse that China has become, it's time to integrate the study of China into college curricula. Additionally, it's important to realize that for at least 15 years, some American businesses, which are ahead of the curve, have recognized the lucrative Chinese market, which includes 20% of the world's population. We now present Edison faculty member Michael Siebenaler, who has studied Chinese films and their success in international markets. He has tips for how Americans can experience these films in an informed way.
We have a lot of interest in film, I'm sure, and as we look through the films we've seen in our lifetimes, we've experienced a lot of different cultures, a lot of different communication methods through different directors and through different mediums in film. We think of genres, westerns, actions, comedy, dramas, all those different types go through our head. But what we really want to process as we see films a little bit more is some of the meanings behind the communication that we see presented to us. Daniel Chandler has stated that film does not simply record an event, but is only an infinite number of possible representations. A good representation of film, you can analyze your own reaction to it, but also the audience around you can interpret different meanings and different signs that they see in the film as well. So as you discuss film with other people, maybe you encounter something that you didn't see and you have a new idea, a new perspective coming from that. Meaning through codes and conventions can be presented in many different ways in the film, through narrative, through the characters, through the set design that we see. Few people can understand all the visuals that go behind filmmaking simply because they haven't worked on an actual film production, but everyone certainly has an opinion about movies and about the visual culture in general. Just as language has words, sentences and paragraphs, film has the shot and the way those shots are edited together. The audience interprets the meaning within the films. We're going to look specifically at Chinese films and how many of the meanings in these films have changed the culture not only of China but of other countries who have seen these films as well. If we look in the United States, this past decade, we've seen a great influx of imported Chinese films, beginning with Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon in 2000, Hero, which was originally released in China in 2002 but was seen in the States a little bit later, and House of Flying Daggers, Curse of the Golden Flower, and more recently Red Cliff, directed by John Woo, and its sequel. Particularly when we look at Hero and how that film changed Chinese culture, we see an increased support in domestic films being made. It focuses on the national identity and showing the culture and the history of that culture for present, past, and future generations. As John Yimou created Hero with his filmmaking cast and crew, we can think about the ideas he must have had, the meanings that he wanted to come through. An original creator of a visual work can create with specific meanings in mind, but ultimately it's up to the audience to decide the meaning. Meaning in the film can certainly change culture and create this visual phenomenon that people can experience and then talk about within their own culture and how it relates to other cultures. In Chinese film particularly, one can learn to read a film, experience the language of films that enables someone to have a higher interpretive ability, and they can find a greater number of meanings within the film if they're looking for those signs and if they're looking for that meaning. We analyze that meaning within the images to see what that means to us, but also a little bit deeper, what the meaning he was trying to get across to his audience. Images need only be read correctly for the audience to appreciate the strength of the medium. The better one reads an image, the better one understands it. This can happen in multiple viewings, or if you're really in tune to what's going on, you can get it the first time. I'm sure we've all experienced some sort of film where seeing it the second time we saw something different, or we saw something we hadn't noticed before. And this speaks a lot to the emotions that we experience in a film. What gets our attention? What really are we focused on as we're watching the film? Particularly these Chinese films that have so much beauty and color in the cinematography, and also so many other different elements, including the camera work, the manipulation of time. We have maybe a flash forward or a flashback or slow motion. We have the editing, cuts and fades. We have different lighting, color, sound is used, whether that be through the soundtrack or actual characters playing instruments in the Chinese films, and the narrative style and the graphics. When we look at assessing meaning, there are three different kinds of knowledge we can look at as we interpret that meaning. The first is the world that we're in, the medium and the genre of the film we're watching. In this case, we're looking at Chinese films, and the relationship between the two. In the film Hero, obviously, as the title suggests, we have that myth being the central character. It's a repeatable character, and it's also an ideal that a lot of people have different feelings about it and associate different signs and different meanings with. When we deconstruct this myth, this hero myth within different cultures, there can be some differences, of course. We have the literal meaning of the word hero, being a positive person, a person who does good not only for himself but for everyone. This meaning can be seen as a profession, as a way of life. Also, other codes we want to look at as we look at the hero myth, the setting and the time particularly. A lot of these Chinese films I've had a great love for, and I've almost seen them as a replacement for some of the Western films that we had seen in the United States, which we don't see as often anymore. You have the basic hero who must fight the enemy. In the Chinese narrative, in a film, you see the hero dies for the cause, whereas in a United States film, in a Western, you would see the hero maybe doesn't die and is constantly seeking adventure. As we enter the world of Chinese film, the filmmakers take you into a world that's natural. They want you to escape into this world and possibly provide some sort of disconnect between the real world and the filmed world. Filmmakers can denaturalize the meaning and your senses as an audience to make familiar things strange by adding incredible elements which they use in Hero through digital effects, different colors, and some unbelievable events. As we look at the genre of Hero even more, Jet Li playing Nameless, his character represents the genre in Chinese film of martial arts, or otherwise known as wuxia. Typically in martial arts we see this being used to kill people, but in Hero it presents a spiritual balance. We also see a relationship with the actual action, the swordplay of the martial arts, with calligraphy, with the character's broken sword and flying snow. Particularly Broken Sword, who finds a way to peace through this method. He starts with the unity of the man of the sword. He becomes very skilled with his sword skills. Then eventually he moves into the sword exists in the man's heart. The sword and the man become one. His intentions come through with the sword. But then he moves to a more peaceful side where we have the absence of the sword. So he actually writes this in his calligraphy 19 different ways, culminating in a final way that is presented in a key scene with the Shin King and Nameless. Hero is a great example of Chinese national identity for the people and the film industry, which has built further films including House of Flying Daggers, Curse of the Golden Dragon, and Red Cliff, where the country supports the filmmaking and the experience of the filmmaking can be seen as a great meaning to the Chinese people. I'm going to read a quote from Hero's director Zhang Yimou, commenting on the colors used in the film. The aesthetics of this film are intrinsically bound up with the plot. The idea of using colors to tell the story came about quite early in the process of